Hello, and welcome to something a little bit different. This is not an episode of the Being Human podcast. This is, I'm not sure what it is. I'll probably call this something like 26 lessons in 26 years. To give you some context, today I turn 26 years old. And a couple of days ago, I wrote down in my journal 26 lessons that I have learned, relearned, am continually learning in life. And I wanted to share them with everyone who listens to the podcast in some way or another. I haven't really done anything like this before. Obviously, I do a lot of videos on Instagram and the like, but talking to the camera for a real extended period of time without a guest sitting across from me is something new. And I want this to be raw, unedited. Um, so, yeah, we'll see how this goes. There may be a lot of long pauses. There may be a lot of me talking complete shit. There may be a lot of me repeating myself, a lot of ums and ahs, maybe full of mishaps, may come out terribly, but I wanted to do a video where I don't have to edit it because, number one, that takes a lot of time. I already do a lot of that each week, but also as well, I wanted something that felt real and candid, very much like the podcast itself. So here we go. Here are 26 lessons. This, I'm not professing these are the 26 lessons you need to learn. These are not, I write, I post a lot of clever little aphorisms, things that are cleverly worded, things that rhyme, that have alliteration in them. I post a lot of those on Instagram and social media. These aren't written in a particularly clever way. They're just things that came to mind that I thought there was a lot of truth in, or at least some truth in, and I want to share them with you. So here we go. 26 lessons in 26 years of life on planet Earth, being human. Number one, consciousness is everything. We talk about consciousness a lot. Obviously, it's a very spiritual term, but it's also a physical term. It's a biological term. Consciousness is, how do you define it? I don't really have the intelligence or the knowledge to define it, but to me, we talk about being present a lot. You need to be present. You need to be present. I agree. Presence is key because most of us, we're far too caught up in repeating the past over in our minds or imagining the future that our time spent in the present, the time our mind is actually attentive and aware and in the present moment, and the time that our soul actually resides in the present moment is so little. Like I said, we're either in the past or we're in the future, whether we're imagining the future or relaying the past. We talk about being present a lot, but the fact is we can't be present all the time. So I think rather than focusing on being present, because that can be so difficult, focus on being conscious. That's something that I've really tried to return to recently. Obviously, I'm very busy, as we all are, and my mind, from the second I wake up a lot of days, is constantly thinking about what I'm going to post, who I'm going to have on the podcast, what I'm going to write, what I'm going to train today, all of these things. And it's also thinking over how training went last night, how the podcast went yesterday, what I posted yesterday, all of these things. Being present, if you focus on that, it can be really hard to do. Whereas I've found recently, if I say to myself, if I think, be conscious, be aware of what you're doing, then it doesn't necessitate that you have to be in the present moment. It just means you have to be aware. And I think that's what consciousness is, by and large. Being conscious is being aware. So if you're relaying the past, be conscious, be aware that that's where you're living right now, in your mind, in your soul. You're living in the past. Be aware to that, because it's not wrong. We learn from the past. We can reminisce on the past. It can bring us a lot of joy, and it can teach us a great deal. To imagine the future is important. It inspires us. It motivates us. It's necessary in order for us to plan ahead. So rather than focusing all the time on being in the present moment, because that's very difficult to do, I think a better reframe in our mind is to be conscious. And that's something I've been focusing on recently, and it's been helping me in the midst of everything that's going on. So, yeah, we're all busy. It can be very difficult to remind ourselves to be present. I think reminding ourselves to be conscious is a bit easier. Consciousness is everything. If you're currently relaying the past, be conscious of that. If you're currently imagining the future, be conscious of that. If you're currently right here in the present moment, be conscious of that too. Consciousness is everything. Yeah, lesson number one. Number two, nothing is more important than family. I mean, this is pretty self-explanatory, right? We have so many relationships in our lives, friendships, romantic relationships, business relationships, which are beautiful because we're bound to those people by nothing other than our common interest or the connection we've formed with one another. That's got a great deal of beauty in it. The fact that we weren't born with these people, we didn't grow up with these people, we don't share blood or DNA in that kind of way, in the way that we do with a family member, that's beautiful. But on the flip side, the beautiful thing about family is that we did do all those things. We do have those things. We grew up with our family, our parents, our grandparents, brothers and sisters. We share blood. That's the thing that I'm really getting at with this. Your family are the only people in the entire world that you share blood, that you share your genes with in that close, immediate way. And that creates a bond that you'll never have with anyone else. It doesn't matter who they are, how long they are with you in your life. And that's not to say you can't have beautiful and beneficial relationships with those people. Of course you can. But family really is the foundation of life, I think. Your family are always going to be there for you. They're always going to love you through all the ups and downs. You will forgive family members of things that you would never forgive other people in your life of. And they'll be there for you. People make mistakes, of course. Our family members, we're gonna fuck up. We're gonna fuck up. Our family's gonna fuck up. But the important thing about family, and the special thing about family, is no matter how far we fall, no matter how far people in our family fall, we're always going to return back to one another. We're always going to share that blood, share that bond, share that bond. Sorry, and that's really special. And with that comes a comfortability that I think is really difficult to find anywhere else. So yeah, family's important. Always remember that whenever your mom or dad or brother or sister, your kids, whenever they do something to not just piss you off but to really hurt you, remember that at the end of the day, nothing can separate you. You're always going to share that bond. You're always going to share that blood. And there is nothing that an open conversation, a few minutes away, or even a good amount of time apart won't fix. When all's said and done, your family, the people that you're going to be there for and that are going to be there for you. Number 3, a handshake or a hug goes a long way. A compliment that people have always given me is that I give good handshakes and I give really good hugs. And it warms me inside as I say that, because it's something I've always taken a great deal of pride in. Let's go to handshake first. Handshakes a bit different for men and women, I guess, because if you're a woman, you don't really want a firm, strong handshake. You want to be a bit more delicate. That's more of the feminine nature. But just talking from a male perspective, if you're a man, you should have a good, firm, strong handshake. Don't be that person that tries to crush another man's hand when you shake their hand and holds on for 5 seconds longer than necessary, because that just pisses people off and it becomes very awkward very quickly. But you should not be the person that has that limp, wet fish of a handshake. That's a big turn off. Yeah, a handshake should reflect your integrity. It should reflect the integrity that you bring to an interaction. When you meet somebody, if you give them a firm, strong handshake, that shows that you're confident. Like I said, it should be a reflection of your integrity. It should show that, you have integrity, that you're switched on. I think if you give someone a firm handshake, it really shows that you're making an effort to have a meaningful interaction with someone. Maybe I'm just thinking into it too deeply. I mean, obviously, that's kind of the preface of the Being Human brand, to think about these things deeply. But yeah, I've always made sure that when you shake another man's hand, you should do so with intent, which I suppose is what you should do with almost everything in life. Do it with intent, and a handshake is a good what's the word I'm looking for? It's a good token of that intent and that integrity. And a hug then is like a handshake on steroids, right? Or a handshake's a lot more formal. A hug really then has that emotional attachment. A hug is like an emotional handshake, I suppose. You can tell the difference. Again, you can tell the difference between somebody hugging you for the sake of giving you a hug and somebody hugging you to embrace you. I read something on social media recently that hugs release a massive amount of oxytocin, which is kind of like your happy, warm, comforting hormone. And yeah, I mean, I absolutely believe that. That's no surprise. The effect you get from a hug, God, it can. Well, it's an emotion releaser. If you're on the brink of bursting into tears and you're doing a really stoic job of keeping it together, just have your mom or your girlfriend or a friend like hold you tight and squeeze you, and within a split second, all those emotions that you're stoically keeping at bay will just come flooding out, which 99 times out of 100 is what's needed at that moment. A hug can be so reassuring. Yeah, a handshake or a hug, depending on what's appropriate, in the circumstance, goes a really long way. With physical beings, this is a physical existence. The power of the physical touch is massive in many, many ways. Don't undervalue the power of a handshake or a hug. And make sure you have a good handshake and a good hug. Don't be that person with a wet fish of a hand, and don't be that person that gives a little awkward hug with a tap on the tap on the back. Sorry, really embrace people. Number 4, don't burn bridges. Leave on good terms. So I kind of alluded to this with point number 2, the family reference, or the insight on family. Other relationships, or every relationship in life comes and goes. It's rare that people are going to be in your life forever. This goes for friendships, romantic relationships, business relationships, whatever. Excuse me. Yeah, relationships come and go. So there's going to be a point in time where you're going to have to break relationships off, where relationships need to come to an end. And regardless of what's led to that point where you need to go your separate ways, if you have the ability to end that relationship, no matter what kind of relationship it is, if you have the ability to walk away from that person on somewhat good terms, do so. Regardless of what they've done, regardless of how they've pissed you off, how you feel they've slighted you, whatever's happened between the two of you, if you have the ability to leave that job, leave that romantic relationship, leave that friendship, to walk away and walk away amicably and with some goodwill left, do so. No matter how you feel. You might be pissed off, you might feel sad and hurt, but don't let that come in the way of, giving that handshake, giving that hug, and walking away without completely destroying all the history that you've shared with that person or entity. Because the way I always think about this is, you'll probably see that person again at some point in future. And when you walk down the street and you see that person coming towards you, do you want to smile because you're happy to see them and you remember all the good times you shared and everything that you benefited from having that relationship with that person? Or do you want to see them and think, oh, fuck, like this is going to be awkward? And, you kind of awkwardly glance at one another and you nod or, whatever. If you have the ability to not burn a bridge, because who knows, you might actually want to go back to that person, go back to that relationship for whatever reason in future. You won't be able to do that if you've burned that bridge. And even if you don't want to go back, even if you never end up going back into that relationship, no matter what it may be, just think, if you encounter this person again in life, which you most likely will, what do you want that interaction to be like? Do you want it to be awkward because you told them where to shove it, or do you want to be able to smile and have a nice little conversation with them, reminiscing on all the good times that you had in the past that you shared? Yeah, don't burn bridges. Leave on good terms. Number 5. The worst thing you can do is stay too long. So I suppose this one requires a bit of an explanation. What I think, this applies to everything. Everything has its heyday. Everything has its golden years, its glory days. And oftentimes, those times will end like that. They'll end in a split second. I've really tried to click my fingers well then, and it really failed. No, it's not happening. Yeah, the worst thing you can do is stay too long. The best metaphor for this is to think of a party. A party, it's got loads of vibes, loads of energy. You're having a really good night. Whether it's at someone's house or in the club, it's at its peak. It drops from there so quickly. And when it's at its peak, you feel part of something great. And if you're still there after it's dropped off that cliff, you look around and you think, oh God, this is quite depressing. People that club promoters that work at clubs and bars talk about it all the time. The best part of the night is around midnight or just before midnight. And it's such a different picture of humanity at midnight than it is to 2-3 in the morning when things are starting to die down. Like I said, it's the difference between that ecstasy, that elation, and that depression. So this applies to relationships as well, whether it's a relationship, whether it's an event, a party, a job. The worst thing you can do, is stay too long. Enjoy that peak, but always try, and you can't always spot it, but oftentimes I think we can see the end coming. We can see when the glory is going to die down, the heyday is going to die down. We can see when things are coming to an end. And because we want to hold on to that moment of ecstasy, that golden period, because we want to hold on to that, we stay because we want it to last forever. We've got to realize when the glory, the greatness is coming to an end. We've got to realize that, and then the real difficult part is we've got to accept that and say to ourselves, now is the time to leave. Now's the time to leave when things are good, when things when the moment's still at its peak or close to its peak, because it will drop away very quickly. And then we're going to have to leave after things have died down, and that will change our perspective when we're looking back on it. So yeah, the worst thing you can do is stay too long. Don't overstay your welcome. I think that's an important part of this lesson as well. Don't overstay your welcome. But as well, don't try and make something last for longer than it does, because you can't recreate the past. You can't make things last forever. So learn to realize when something's coming to an end and accept that and move on. By the way, before I go into lesson number 6, I was actually going to say this at the start of the video. So as you know, Mr. Bassett is now the official sponsor of the Being Human podcast, of me and my content. This is something I haven't actually, let me get it in focus, something I haven't actually put on camera before, Grappler's Balm. I've been using this for the past few days. I get quite a bit of dry skin around my mouth, around my nose. The Grappler's Balm is amazing. It smells incredible. And let me just read you these ingredients. Beef tallow, jojoba oil, witch hazel, tea tree oil, peppermint oil, and eucalyptus oil. Completely natural. This is just nature's work that Mr. Bassett's has whipped up into this beautiful balm. It smells amazing. It does the job. And yeah, just to speak on this a little bit more, um, anyone that knows me knows I'm Mr. Natural. I want all my foods to be completely natural, as processed as little as possible. That extends to cosmetics and anything I use. Any soap that I use, obviously I use Grappler's soap. Um, like I said, moisturizers, things like this balm. I want them to be as natural as possible, and that's what I love about Mr. Bassett's. Everything's natural, natural ingredients. So I really feel lucky to have Mr. Bassett sponsoring the podcast, be sponsoring me as an athlete, and all the content I put up, because these are the kinds of brands that I want to work with. And I haven't said it before, I don't think. I hope it goes without saying that I'll never promote anything on this podcast or anywhere online that I don't personally believe in and use. So yeah, I hope that goes without saying, and I definitely feel lucky to have Mr. Bassett's as the official sponsor, of the Being Human podcast. So yeah, pick up some of this Grappler's balm. Smells amazing. I was going to say tastes amazing. You could actually eat it because it's 100% organic and natural. Maybe I'll try some after this. Yeah, so head over to mrbassets.com and use the code WAG10 to get 10% off your order. Lesson number 6. Let me just check my mic's still on. I've done quite a bit of recording today, so the last thing I want is for the mic to die and then all of this to be audioless. Number 6, the purpose of being able to fight is that you don't have to fight. So I've been training in some kind of combat sport, doing some kind of martial arts since I did a year of karate at 9 or 10 years old. As men, we want to be the top dog. We want to be the alpha male. We want to vanquish all comers. We want to, be savages, be destroyers. The purpose of being able to fight is so you don't have to. The purpose of having the capacity to enact great violence is to create a peaceful environment so no violence needs to be enacted. I think as men, we all go through moments where we lose our cool. We all go through periods where we want to be violent. We feel violent within us. That's not something that we should suppress or try and kill, because it's part of us. It's part of who we are physically. We have to accept that. But we need to bring the advanced, intelligent human element into play and remind ourselves that, evolutionarily speaking, we're at a point now where we can go beyond violence. I do believe there is no problem in this world that cannot be solved through peaceful means, that cannot be solved through words, through emotions, through human interaction, and not just animalistic, violent interactions. So yeah, I think every man should learn how to fight, not so they can just go around taking justice into their own hands and using those violent capabilities to be able to control situations and mold the world to what they think's right, but so that you can diffuse any argumentative, any interaction, so violence isn't needed. If two men know how to fight, the best example I think is fighters that have these feuds. You at a face-off, you have these security guards holding them back, but really, if you just let them at one another, I think 9 times out of 10, these guys are not going to bother scrapping with one another before they actually get in the ring, before they get in the cage, because they have a great respect. They know what one another can do, and they know there's no need to carry out that violence outside of the training room and outside of competition. Obviously, you've got the wild cards that don't have that clarity and peace of mind. But I think most people that know how to fight know that it's not worth fighting unless you're in the competitive arena, unless you're getting paid for it, unless it's your job, unless it's absolutely necessary. And 99 times out of 100, it's not necessary. So if you're a man listening to this and you've never trained a martial art before, I could not recommend it enough. It's going to do so many things for you. Whether you have experience fighting or not, just remember, the whole purpose of being able to is so you don't have to. And that's a massive, massive lesson for me. Number 7, beware of what's popular. So everyone knows that I have a distaste for the mainstream. I don't watch the news. I don't keep up to date with popular culture. I could not name you one person that's ever been on Love Island. That's a lie. I could name maybe 5. Yeah, I don't pay attention to the mainstream. No matter what it is, there's a Stoic quote. I wish I'd actually written this down. I think it's by Epictetus, and he says, "Be aware of what the mob regards as desirable." When humans get together, we have this herd mob mentality. I don't know why, because we're such intelligent beings at our core. But when we get together, we get into this mob herd mentality, and we start coveting and desiring these things that do no good for us, that really aren't to be coveted and really aren't desirable. Everyone wants the new car. Everybody wants this new thing that's coming out. Everyone wants to go to the hottest place. Everyone loves Dubai at the moment, so Dubai's the big place to go. So everybody in this country wants to go to Dubai for their annual holiday. Everybody, like, Louis bags are fashionable. Everybody wants a Louis Vuitton handbag, whatever it is. Like I said, I don't even know what the trends are because I don't keep up to date with them. But beware of what's popular. Those are kind of more superficial examples. I suppose what I'm talking about is with medicine, healthcare, philosophical insights, sociological views. Just be aware of what's mainstream and what's really popular, because for whatever reason, a lot of the time, it's maybe not the best thing. Question what most people like and why they like it, because the fact that most people like it definitely is not a prerequisite to it being good. It doesn't mean that people should like it just because they do. We're human. We're ultimately flawed. And when we start moving in this herd, this mob mentality, and we don't question the motivations and reasons behind things, then we've got the blinders on. We can't see the periphery. We're blinded. So keep your eyes open. Goes back to the first point, I suppose. Be conscious and be aware. Be aware of what's popular. Number 8, it's better to be sad than angry. At my core, I have such a tendency for anger. I'm wired to be an angry, mad person. Like I said, we shouldn't suppress that because it's part of anger. Is a very animalistic emotion. It's there for a reason, but a lot of the time we're angry because we're sad, and we use this anger as a shield. Because to be sad, being sad, to actually be sad is so vulnerable. You feel completely open and naked. You feel defenseless because it's you. Sad, to be sad, you're in a weak state. You're in a delicate state, and that's not a bad thing, providing what you're sad is something that is justifiable to be sad about, which 9 times out of 10 it is. Sadness doesn't really lie. But because it's such a delicate state, we don't want to feel delicate. We don't want to feel weak. So we put up this shield, and it's that shield of anger. We use it to protect ourselves, but it doesn't really protect ourselves. All it does is it doesn't let people in to help us, and it doesn't allow the emotions out to express themselves. Yeah, most of the time, I would say all of the time, anger does not serve us. It really doesn't. Don't use anger to disguise or protect yourself from sadness. Allow yourself to be sad. Allow yourself to be vulnerable. This is something that at some points in recent history I've had a really good handle on, but it's a lesson that I definitely have to keep relearning, because I will so easily fall back into that easy pattern of being angry when all I want to do really is be sad. And then linking to this, number 9, sadness is beautiful. So this tails right off to what I was just talking about. This delicate, weak state, things that are delicate, beautiful. They're kind of synonymous, or they're very very closely linked. Something that's delicate, it's delicate. It's delicate because it's intricate. It's complex. Delicacy is beauty. Something goes back to that, right? You call something a delicacy. Oh, this is a delicacy in such and such country. They regard it so highly. Sadness is a delicate state. It's a delicacy. Sadness is beautiful. If you're able to lean into sadness, to not shy away from it, to not protect yourself from it, you will come to know through experience that there's so much beauty in sadness. When you're going through grief, when someone passes away, allow yourself to sit in it. God, you will discover so much truth. You will discover so much about yourself. You will feel things you've never felt before. And that can be difficult, but there is so much beauty through the other side of that difficulty. It will connect you with God in so many ways. Some people kind of use this as a negative to having a relationship with God or believing in God. They'll say, oh, people only find God when they're sad. Yeah, because when you're in that vulnerable, raw state, that's when if you actually allow yourself to be vulnerable, to be open, to be sad, that's when you're most receptive to God's work, to the universe's work, to God's plan. You're receptive to God, to the higher powers in the universe, whatever you want to call them. You're receptive to those maybe the most when you're sad. So sadness is beautiful. Lean into it. Don't shield yourself from it. Allow yourself to be sad when it's justifiable to be so. Yeah, a whole lot of beauty will come from it. Number 10, adulthood does not exist. Everyone makes it up. So I'm 26 years old today. If 10 years ago, as a 16-year-old child, young man, I walked up the street and someone that I saw told me they're 26 years old, I would look at them as an adult, as somebody that had kind of, I don't know, that was different than me, in some way other than them just being on this earth longer than me. They're an adult. They've got things figured out. They must feel a certain way. They must have a certain level of confidence and assuredness in what they know in this world. Maybe I'm just on my own here, but 26 years old, adulthood does not exist. Or, when I talk about adulthood, I'm really talking about this concept of having things figured out. When we were kids, we looked at our parents, we looked at our teachers as adults, and we looked at them as people that had it figured out, that knew. They knew because they're adults. They told us what to do because they knew. And yeah, if you're living life well, you should have a lot more wisdom at 26 than you did at 16. And I would say I definitely do. But do I think I have it figured out? Not one bit. Or not one bit, but I definitely don't have it all figured out. And nobody does, I don't think. I do believe there is an incredibly small, an incredibly minute percentage of the population on this in the world that are enlightened people or are prophets or are certified geniuses, whatever you want to call them, whatever you want to define them as. There is a very small amount of people that do have that level of insight, that level of wisdom, that are dialed in to the universe, that are connecting with God at such a high level, that are so intelligent that they kind of do have everything figured out. But that is such a small percentage of the population. That is just a few people every generation. Everyone else, we're figuring it out as we go along. Trial and error. We're learning lessons that we then have to relearn over and over. We're so flawed. Our perspectives are so flawed. You listen to this podcast, you consume my content. I hope that things that I say and things that the guests say resonate and bring you wisdom and value and all of that stuff. But always remember that me, all the guests, everyone, we're all flawed. Nobody has the Holy Grail when it comes to knowledge, intelligence, wisdom. Nobody has it all figured out, short of, like I said, a few people every generation. The people that, that you listen to their motivational speeches on Instagram, You read their writing. Remember, they are imperfect people just like you. And I suppose it goes back to question everything. And don't assume that everyone else has it figured out. Don't think, oh my God, like, what they're speaking about this so confidently. Like, they know that. How come I don't know that? Okay, well, they feel like they know that. And that may very well be true in this moment. But nothing's forever and nobody has it figured out. So, yeah, that's my perspective at least. I'm not worried about having it figured out because from what I see, what I think, I don't think anyone does. We're all in this together and it's just about sharing ideas and finding out what works for you. Adulthood, in that regard, does not exist. Everybody makes it up. Number 11. What you are chasing isn't as shiny as you think it is. This, I suppose, links in with number 7 a bit. Beware of what's popular. It's a bit different, though. We chase these things that in our mind are going to change our life in some revolutionary way. Whether it's a certain amount of money each month, whether it's a certain amount of followers on Instagram, whether it's an ADCC gold medal, whatever the accolade is in your competitive arena, we chase these things. A law degree, a job in law. I'm talking from my own experience. Whatever it is, we chase these things and we think that when we get them, like our life's going to magically change in some way. It doesn't. These things that we covet, these trophies, figurative or literal, be prepared that when you get them, they're not going to change your life in the way you thought they will. Not to say they won't have benefits, not to say you won't feel fulfilled and have a great amount of satisfaction in having attained them and achieved them, but be aware, even if it's not a physical thing, they're just things like everything else. And your life's made up of so many things, and it's made up 99.9% of the internal rather than the external. So all these things that we chase, that you regard as so shiny and so coveted, again, things that are so desirable to you, just remember that's great. Like, still go for them. I'm not saying just like you don't have to be, all Buddhist about it and renounce all your desires and just go to a monastery or whatever it is. Continue to chase your goals, but just be aware that these things that you're chasing, once you get them, they're not just going to magically flip your life in some crazy way. That's my experience anyway. Number 12. Animals are greater than humans. I love animals. I think we all do. I think the only people that don't like animals, I'm just kind of fact checking that in my mind. The people that I know that don't like animals are the people that I think are a bit emotionally constipated, fairly closed-minded. Basically, what I'm saying is, I think everyone loves animals, and if you don't love animals, you're probably not opening yourself up enough emotionally to be able to receive the joy that animals will bring into your life. Humans, we can be so conniving, so scheming. We get caught up in semantics. We talk in this language that we both understand. We use words to communicate rather than just looking one another in the eyes and, communicating telepathically or through facial expressions, through a hug, through a handshake. All that gets taken away when we can talk to one another through this intricate medium that we call language. With animals, you wake up in the morning, you walk downstairs, you look into the eyes of your cat, your dog, your rabbit, your hamster, whatever it is. That's another thing. People, not most people are dog lovers, right? God, I don't think there's any animal that you can't have like a real deep relationship with. Okay, like people are going to take it to the extreme and say, oh, can you have the same kind of relationship with a pet scorpion that you can with a dog, or with a fly or a wasp? Okay, maybe not, but you know what I'm saying. Oh God, you can have such beautiful interactions with pretty much any animal in the animal kingdom. Open yourself up to that, whether it's your pet dog, your pet cat, or whether you're walking through the woods and you come across a deer or you hear the birds tweeting. open yourself up to the joy of being around animals. As humans, we're so arrogant. We think this is our planet, that we're the only species here. No way. Who knows what's in the future, but one thing I'm willing to bet is, look, we're going to be outlived by a whole load of species, in my opinion. If we don't kill them all off and just obliterate the world in the next 100 years. Animals are so special. They understand you a lot more than you think. And yeah, like some of the most beautiful relationships I've had in my 26 years of living have been with animals. Pets that are no longer with me. God, like I've never known grief as to when I've had pets pass away. They're more than just your best friend. The soulful connection you can have with these creatures, despite not even speaking a word to one another, or we speak a lot of words to them. They don't necessarily speak a lot of words to us. It's profound and it's so beautiful. So, be around animals. They're far greater than human beings, as far as I'm concerned, as much as I love human beings. And I think we're great as well. Number 13. Let me just do a mic check. Yeah, we're all good. Number 13. You should change your mind. If you hold the same opinions on most things that you did 5 years ago, then you have serious concerns, in my opinion. Because what that basically means is you have not grown in the past 5 years. I've said it in whatever point I did a few minutes ago. Human beings are so flawed. We have not got it figured out. So it's a constant process of finding out something, thinking you then have that thing figured out, and then finding out you did not have that thing figured out, and then continuing to figure it out. It's a constant process. We don't have it figured out. So it's fine for you to stand up and say with confidence, this is how it is about X, Y, Z, whether it's, you say something about physical health, or whether you say something about religion, spirituality, culture, whatever it is, say it with chest, as they say. Be confident in it. But just remember that nothing's forever. Even if what you've said is right on the money, even if what you said is completely true when you said it, the world's constantly evolving. Things are constantly changing. And just because it's true in one moment or 1 second, it does not mean it's true in the next. You're going to have to constantly, I think David Goggins calls it, when he talks about it, he said it's like updating the Rolodex or something like that. You've got to constantly be running maintenance, constantly updating, constantly taking in new information and updating your opinions on everything in accordance with that new information you're taking in. So if you're someone whose opinions stay the same, I would look in the mirror and ask yourself, am I being as open-minded as I can be? Because we've all got that friend that's, that's closed-minded, that is just ironclad in their opinions. They're not willing to have open discourse and discussion about things. And as a result, they never learn. And we're saying we've all got that friend. Oftentimes, that friend can be us, a side to us that is so sure that it's got everything figured out and it's not willing to hear other people's opinions, not willing to take in new information. We don't like change. We want to feel like we know. We want control. We want to know. The unknown is scary. Opening yourself up to the unknown, to be receptive to new experiences, new information, is the only way you grow, the only way you become more intelligent, the only way you gain more wisdom, the only way you get better at anything. So if you're saying something with chest on Monday, and then on Friday you're saying something that's the complete opposite to it with chest, that's fine. Don't do it too much, because then you're the person that flip-flops, and you basically have no integrity to what you say, and you've kind of renounced any meaning that your spoken word has. So don't be that person that constantly changes their opinion too much, but do not be that person that just stays rigid in their opinions for the sake of being resistant to change and resistant to new ideas. Number 14. the best movies are the ones nature produces. Lots of people will have heard me talk about this before. My favourite, the most fulfilling thing I can do is walk up a mountain, get to the summit, have have it be a clear day, and just stare at the sky, stare at the view. I promise you, I could sit there all day. All of my friends will will have had to have undergone some experience where they're ready to move on from a place, to continue walking, to go home, and they're just having to wait for me whilst I sit there and continue to just stare out at everything that's in front of me. That is that's something that we don't do often enough. There's so much research actually. Andrew Huberman talks about it a lot. The calming effect of our eyes when we look at long distances and we scan across them, when we're basically viewing horizons, it has such a calming effect on us. On our cortisol, the way it activates the sympathetic nervous system or parasympathetic. I've forgotten which is which. Basically, the one that calms us, centers us. I mean, that's my meditation, viewing massive landscapes, because they're movies. You'll watch the cars go by, you'll watch people go by, you'll watch the clouds go by. As the clouds go by, the sun will be shining in a certain way and it will cast light in a certain way. Then a cloud will go in front of the sun, and all of a sudden it'll be a new environment. It'll be a new scene. These are nature's movies, and we don't watch them enough. Instead, we stay inside and we watch Netflix, which is fine. I know I use that phrase a lot. We sit inside, your bloodline bled on the battlefield, and you're sitting inside watching Netflix. You can watch Netflix. That's fine. I watch Netflix as well. But this is a note to myself first and foremost, as for everything. The best movies are the ones that nature produces. Take more evenings to go outside, walk up a hill, and just watch the world, because it's amazing, and we don't do it enough. Number 15. Employment is a psyop. Lunch breaks suck. So, I suppose a little personal announcement or insight. The past year, I've been working a part-time job. As in, I've actually been in employment again, alongside personal training and obviously all this other stuff that I do. And it's been good. It's been good. I can't say I've enjoyed it, because I'll never enjoy doing work that's not this, that's not training, coaching people. That's not my true passions. But I've appreciated it, and it's been all right. It's been good. But I'm leaving that job next week for multiple reasons. But as I'm leaving, I'm saying to myself the same thing that I said when I left the law firm in London 2 years ago. Employment, if you're in employment, you're working that 9 to 5, whatever it is, and you're having a great time doing it, that's great. More power to you. I'm so glad that it's working out for you, because it has never worked out for me. Not to say never. I mean, I really enjoyed working at Tesco part time while I was at uni. I worked there for over 4 years. That was really good. But I'm never going to be able to do 9 till 5. I say that with confidence. Yeah. To me, it's a farce. You're working for someone else. You're working for someone else's passions. You're not working on what you truly want to work on. You may kid yourself and think, "Oh, I enjoy doing this. This is really fulfilling." Is it really? Again, 99 times out of 100, I don't think it is. I don't think you're actually working on your passion. I don't think you're actually fulfilled. And you're taking the smallest sliver. They're paying you for your time. You're taking the smallest sliver of what that business is making. Even in well-paid jobs. Employment's a psyop. Go pursue your passions. Quit your job. Start up your own business. Find a way to make an income out of doing what you truly love. And the beauty of that is, if you love sitting at home watching Netflix, you can make an income from doing that. Start up your own version of Gogglebox or whatever it is. There's ways to do it now in the world. So yeah. And the second part to it, lunch breaks. We all need a lunch break. We don't need one, but we want to have a lunch break because we want to break up the day. But then you've got 60 minutes where you're trying to do something to just get yourself out of this horrible environment. Again, I'm talking from my experience. People that love their job won't connect with this. But yeah, you just want the day of work to be over. You just want your day where you've fulfilled your time for your employment to be over, and you've got 60 minutes on your lunch break to try and enjoy yourself. But you've just got to go back into it for another 3, 4, 5 hours once it's done. So a lunch break's kind of dead time. That's a bit of a lie. I've done lots of productive things on my lunch break, made lots of content on my lunch break, and had good times. But yeah, lunch breaks suck. Number 16. You will look back on turbulence fondly. So I wrote a poem about this in April or March. The turbulent times in your life, the times when everything's going to shit, when things are so unsteady and you're having to struggle through. Again, we like the known. To be in the unknown, to not know what's happening and to not be in that comfortable state, it's unnerving and it's scary. The unknown is such a fear of ours. But in that turbulence, when you're in the whirlwind, in 12 months' time, in 5 years' time, you will look back on that so poetically and with these rose-tinted lenses at the turbulence you were going through and how it formed you and how it made you who you are today. I mean, maybe, again, this is just my perspective. I am quite a poetic person. Someone told me recently, someone asked me when I was born, and I obviously said the 3rd of July, and they said, you're a Scorpio. I said to them, what does that mean? And they said, you're highly emotional. I said, yes. I'm here and I'm here. I live at the peaks and troughs, and I'm happy with that. I've done enough of the inner work to, I wouldn't want to be anyway. The alternative is to be here, or even here. I love experiencing the highest highs and the lowest lows. And you can't do one without the other. If you're the kind of person that is able to revel, enjoy at the highest capacity possible, then you're also that person that feels the pain of sadness so poignantly, however you say that word. I'm in complete acceptance of that. I wouldn't want to be any other way. I love the way I'm wired. I love what I get out of life as a result of it. So yeah, I'm a very poetic person because I kind of enjoy sadness without, and to some people that's going to sound like I'm some kind of emo. Maybe that is what an emo is originally. Yeah, I'm a very poetic person in the sense that I see sadness very poetically. I see the beauty in sadness quite easily now, and I'm able to appreciate it and enjoy it. It doesn't mean that sad times in life aren't difficult. They absolutely are. I'm not saying it's not a struggle. I'm not saying I won't face times in life that really bring me to my knees and I want a way out of it. I just want the good times to come. I'm not saying that, but I do enjoy sadness. I do enjoy a good bit of melancholy. As Perry says, he said, I said to him, I need to write some more poetry. And he said, poetry's for sad boys, bro. He's like, you can be a sad boy if you want. That's okay. But just know poetry's for sad boys. Well, I guess I'm a sad boy. I'm also, a very happy and joyful boy as well, depending on the time. But yeah, I still think it applies to most people. You'll look back on those struggling times very fondly in the end. You'll see all the good that you took out of it. You'll see all the good that it brought about, how it formed you, how it made you. So yeah, just remember that when you're going through struggling times. Think back to the struggling times in your past. You probably look back on them now as key pivotal points in your life, and you look back on this time that you're going through now as difficult as it is, as a key and pivotal point in your life. Number 17. Never try to recreate something. This kind of goes in tandem with one of the worst things you can do is stay too long. We want the good times to last forever. We want these points of elation to last forever. And when they come to an end, we then find ourselves trying to recreate them again. Um, I love summer. My name, Aaron, means the sun in Hindi. So I've got such a strong affinity with the sun. I love the summertime. I mean, everyone does, right? Everyone loves the summer. I found myself so many times when summer comes around, when it comes to my birthday or another time in the summer, because I'm autistic to the point where I can remember what I did on a certain date 6 years ago. I'm really good at remembering dates. They just wire themselves into my brain. So I'll remember what I did on the 21st of June, 2016. I actually can. I can remember what I did on the 21st of June, 2017, 2018, all of these years. And before, when it's come around to certain dates throughout the year, not just in the summer, I remember what I've done in the past. I remember the really good times I've had. I thought, I'm going to try and do that again. I'm going to try and do like the exact same thing because it will feel exactly like it did 2, 3, 7 years ago. Every time. It's that comparison. It's not like it was. You can't recreate it. That's the beauty of it. A moment in time. There will never be another moment like it. So don't try to recreate it, because when you try and recreate something, when you try and recreate it, you bring in that comparison to it. And when you have that comparison to it, you'll always end up being disappointed because you want it to be exactly like that. Let it be what it is going to be now, because it's going to be something different. Enjoy that. Don't try to make it the same as it was, because you can't. Number 18, lessons do not stay learned. This maybe should have been the 26th lesson because it's kind of like a nice finishing point, but alas, here we are. Yeah, all of these lessons I've had to learn multiple times over. I have not even learned them in a sense that I'm still having to learn them right now. Learning is a continuous process. We think that once we have learned something, it's there in the box, in the bank, it's safe, we're always going to know it, we're always going to remember it, put it into practice. No way. You've got to run the maintenance, as Goggins says. You've got to continually update things and remember them. I mean, a big one for me is anger, because, again, being an emotive person, anger comes, the anger in me burns brightly and very easily. You don't have to stoke the fire too much to rise the rage within me. And I've gone through multiple periods now in life where I've zenned, I've dissolved that anger, and then I've got complacent with it, and it's balled up again. Yeah, don't think you're gonna figure something out. Again, I mean, all these lessons are kind of tied into one another. Don't think you're gonna figure something out and then it stays figured out. Lessons do not stay learned. The world changes, you change with the world. You're probably going to have to learn, some really key and pivotal lessons over and over and over again. What can we do to make sure we don't have to waste our time relearning the same thing over and over? Be conscious, be aware of things, put practices and procedures into play. I don't like the word procedure, that sounds too corporate. Put practices into your life day to day which ensure that you, remain cognizant and aware of the lessons you have had to learn. So hopefully you do not have to go back and learn them again. And if you go back and have to learn the lesson again, that means you've let an old problem creep back into your life. I had a problem with, I've got a problem with controlling my anger. I fixed that problem. I learned, in fixing it, I obviously learned a lesson on how to control my anger or how to dissolve my anger. Great. If then a point in future I have to learn how to control my anger, how to dissolve my anger, that then means that I have lost control. You know what I mean? To relearn a lesson, it means that I've had to go through the problem again. So it's not just a case of relearning the lesson, it's the consequences that have led you to that point where you need to then relearn it. It means you've let an old problem back into your life that you didn't need to, because you'd cracked it, you figured it out, and then you got complacent. Lesson number 19. How you do something is not how you do everything. Maybe other people are different. Maybe how you do something is how you do everything. But for me, it's definitely not. I I'm happy and confident to say I'm an incredibly hard worker. I work as hard as I possibly can to, you know, put forth valuable, great content. I train as hard as I possibly can to win as much as possible, to achieve greatness in my craft as an athlete, whether it's on the mats or the mountains. Those are all things I'm passionate about. Give me something I'm not passionate about, which is everything else in life, and I promise you, it will be impressive how little I work at it. I'm so lazy at anything that's not my passion. Anything I'm not passionate about. Again, like because I'm here and here, it's either my true love, and I'm all in on it, and I'm as hardworking as possible, or I do not give a fuck about it. And the things that I don't care about, I can't put any effort in. I know that sounds like a cop out. Oh, what if you had to work a 9 to 5 job, otherwise you're going to go homeless? Yeah, necessity is a powerful motivator. Without the motivator of absolute necessity, I have zero capacity to work hard at something I don't care about. Yeah, that's something I've learned. And I don't think I say I can't fix it. I think the way to fix it is make necessity a thing. If you absolutely have to do something out of necessity, then you will do it. But I don't think that's something I should fix, because I think that drives me to create a life where I'm able to just work on my passions, focus on my passions, which is ultimately what I want. Number 20, a walk will always help. Walking. If you're in a rut, if you're going over the same thing over and over again, you're replaying a conversation, I should have done this, should have done that, or what do I do? What do I do? You're trying to make a decision. Go for a walk. Go for a walk. You're feeling trapped, you're feeling a bit claustrophobic, get out of your house, go for a walk. A walk is not just going to, it's not going to solve your problems. It might do sometimes, because your brain, your cognitive pathways are stimulated by you walking. They've done studies on this. The level of neurological activity in the brain skyrockets when you go for a walk. So it might actually solve your problem. You're trying to make a decision, or you're ruminating over a past event. Going for a walk may actually solve it. But even if going for a walk does not solve the problem, which oftentimes it won't be able to, someone's dying. Going for a walk isn't going to bring them back to life, or cure them. But God, it'll make you feel better about it. Go for a walk, and for God's sake, go for a walk outside. Do not go for a walk on the treadmill, please. I see people in the gym walking on the treadmill, and yes, it's much better that you're walking on a treadmill than sitting on a sofa, of course. For God's sake, go for a walk outside. If it's raining, even better, because if you're in a rut, what's better than a walk in the rain? Go for a walk in the rain. And if the sun's shining, what's better than that? That's an instant mood booster. Instant mood booster. Yeah, go for a walk. If you're in a rut, go for a walk. A walk will always help. Even if it doesn't solve the problem, it will always help. Lesson 21. We do not see what's in front of us, we see what we look for. So I posted this as like part of a reel on social media a few months ago. Yeah, we don't see what's right in front of us. We don't. And this can be a good or bad thing. Because sometimes what's in front of us is a big challenge, and if we actually just look to what's in front of us, it could be very demotivating. It can scare us. It can, it can stop us in our tracks. And if we're able to see what we look for, which is the positive, which is the silver lining that isn't in front of us, but we can see it on the horizon, that's a great thing. That's an amazing thing. But it can also be to our detriment as well. Sometimes you need to see reality for what it is, and you delude yourself because you want to ignore it. You're trying to suppress this emotion that's living within you, and you're not seeing what's in front of you, what you actually need to deal with. You're just seeing everything as sunshine and rainbows. You're basically ignoring the issue. So this is something that can be a good thing, can be a bad thing. It's basically your perceptive bias. You're not going to see what's in front of you unless you consciously are aware of yourself and your environment, and you pay attention to what is in front of you. We need an attachment to reality, but use it to your power. If what's in front of you is pretty rubbish, yeah, see the positive. Look, even if you have to look on the horizon, if it's so far away, you have to, contort your neck and spine to look for a perspective that's better than the reality in front of you. Excuse me. Do that. Use it to your advantage. But yeah, be aware of it. We do not see what's in front of us. We see what we look for. God, we're an hour into this. Number 22. You're always going to have to, quote unquote, waste time figuring things out at first. So I've learned this when I start something new, when I started doing reels on Instagram, when I started doing this podcast, when I started writing my newsletter, when I start a new S&C program, whatever it is, when I start doing a new way of passing guard in grappling, whatever it is, there's a period of time where things aren't clicking. You just basically have to do trial and error. Like everything you're doing is wrong, and you're thinking, God, I'm wasting time. I just want to get on with this and get it right. Getting it wrong is part of then being able to get it right after the fact. You have to go through that process of doing it wrong, doing it wrong, doing it wrong, doing it wrong, because then that's information in the database for you to be able to go, okay, trial and error, this is the way to do it, and you'll get it. So when you're starting something new, when you're in the early stages of something, and you feel like you're just grinding your wheels, you're having to just search things on the internet, and you're like, oh, this isn't how I do it. You download an app to do something, and you're like, oh, this isn't the right app. This isn't the way of doing it. You go to post something, and you accidentally delete it. You're like, oh my God, I wasted like an hour making that 7-second piece of content, and it's gone now, and I have to do it over again. Wasted time. It's not wasted time. You have to go through that to find the right way of doing it. So there is no wasted time in that regard. Number 23, exposure therapy is the only method you need. The only way out is through. You are never going to overcome a fear. You are never going to learn a lesson by ignoring it and shying away from it. If you have a fear of heights, there's no way you're going to get over that fear unless you expose yourself. And yeah, most of the time it's going to have to be gradual. Most of the time it's not going to be a case of throwing yourself in the deep end, although it is sometimes. Whatever your fear is, you have to go into it. You have to go into the belly of the beast. You have to look into the eye of the devil in order to overcome it. Yeah, that one's pretty self-explanatory, I think. Exposure therapy is the only thing you need. And anything else is just kind of a distraction from the issue. Number 24. Few things are uglier than a closed mind. So again, this kind of ties into a previous point. I've talked about closed-mindedness a bit. Yeah, that person, and oftentimes it is ourselves, that person that is not willing to hear someone else's opinion because they think they own the truth on something. You think you know. I think I know. Even about things that I'm quite knowledgeable about. Physical fitness, nutrition, S&C, philosophy, whatever it is, things that I think I've got a good amount of knowledge on, and that I do. I won't want to hear someone else's opinion, and it's easy to look at it. It's easier to look at it from a third party perspective. We all know that person that we can't really have open discourse with them. They're not willing to hear our ideas, and as a result, you're not able to actually have meaningful discussion with them. That's the reason I started this podcast, because having meaningful discussion, I think, is something that we as humans do not do enough of. We talk so shallowly. We don't engage in real conversation. That's a big reason why I started a podcast. But we've got to do that in everyday life. We've got to discuss ideas. Even if you have discussion about something with somebody for an hour or 4 hours, and you started the discussion with your opinion, and over the course of those 4 hours, you listen to what they say, and you end that conversation having concluded that everything they said in that 4 hours about that thing was bullshit, and you still retain your original opinion, that is not a wasted process. Again, you should still do that, because then at least you've heard them out. And okay, yeah, sometimes like there's the old saying, you can learn from anybody. Okay, yeah, there's always going to be that person that's just completely off their rocker, and you will waste time entertaining their crazy philosophies and ideas. But hey, actually, you might there's even gems to be learned from that person too. Even if you end up retaining your original opinion, still have these open conversations. Be willing, be open to the idea, no matter how unlikely you think it is, that you could be wrong and they could be right. Because, again, I keep using this phrase 99 times out of 100, you will learn something. Even if you retain your original opinion, you will learn something. Don't be that person that people can't have open conversations with, because a closed mind's ugly. If you're just, you shut down other people's opinions, you don't want to hear other people's thoughts, people won't want to talk to you because it's not nice. Why would people want to interact with that? Few things are uglier than a closed mind. Number 25, never let the child within you die. I was around my grandma and granddad's the other day, and we were looking through old photos, and I looked at some old photos of myself. I mean, I'm still a pretty goofy person to this day. I say pretty goofy. I'm a goofy person to this day. Always have been. I've always been hyperactive, which serves me well, because I'm productive and all that other good stuff. Yeah, I was such an energetic, hyperactive child. I was just looking at these photos of me just doing like silly, stupid stuff, pulling silly faces. Like I remember what I was like as a kid. I was just constant. I must have been a nightmare. I must have been such an irritation for like any adult around me. So I was always just screaming and shouting. But that's a good thing. That's a good, like, we should let kids be kids. And I'm saying this as a real lesson to myself, because I don't know why, because I really struggle to be around loud kids that are just out there enjoying themselves. And I was one of them. So maybe there's something to be said in that, because I was looking at these photos and I was like, God, why was I like this as a kid? And I stopped. I caught myself. I said it a couple of times. I was like, what was I fucking doing? I caught myself and I thought, why are you like looking back and resenting who you were? That's beautiful. Like, you're just pure, unadulterated. That word, unadulterated. We should not want to be adults. There's no such thing as adults. People do not have it figured out. So to be unadulterated is a good thing, because it means you've dropped this idea of adulthood and adultness, which is that, you become an adult, you become this person that's got it all together, and your emotions don't flow, and people respect you. Fuck all of that. Forget it. Let that child within you that doesn't care what people are going to think about what you do, that isn't bothered about being themselves. Do not let that child die. Be you. And it doesn't mean you should be disrespectful to people because you don't care what they think. That you shouldn't care about other people and do for others. Like, hopefully, if you're really in touch with who you are, that will come naturally. I'm not just saying like f everyone else, but yeah, like, don't, as adults, we're so concerned with what we do and so self-conscious. That's what I'm getting at, really. Being self-conscious. As a kid, you're not self-conscious. And we then, as an adult, kill that child off in order to gain more respect, more social status, more prestige, which are all just bullshit. So yeah, do not let that inner child die. Do not resent the silly, embarrassing things you did as a child. Do not look back and resent them. Be proud of them, and incorporate a healthy amount of that into your life as a quote-unquote adult. Lesson 26. Believe them. Time really does move fast. This is something you're never going to understand until you feel it. Like, today, I'm officially closer to 30 years old than I am 20 years old. That's something I've been very conscious about over the past year. That it seems like just a couple of minutes ago, I was in my early 20s, and now it feels like I'm knocking on the door of 30, which I'm not. I've got 4 years, almost half a decade. But yeah, I'm starting to understand. I'm starting to feel what all the adults said when I was younger. Like, enjoy your time in school, enjoy your time at college, at uni, because like, you know, once you get into the quote unquote real world, it's like time moves fast, and it's actually physically true. I read this a while ago that because the longer you spend on this planet, the older you are. Each year is then a smaller percentage of your entire time on this planet, you know, of your life. So a year becomes a smaller segment. So when people say, "Oh, the years are going by quicker," as you get older, that is actually true. A year will feel faster because it's a shorter amount of time relative to your whole life. So as you progress through life, time will literally be going quicker for you, if that makes sense. Yeah, I'm starting to feel that now. Years are going by at a much quicker rate. A year used to feel like pretty long. A year's long, right? Wow, it doesn't feel that long now. It feels like they're going by quicker and quicker because they are. Um, so what do you do with that? Go back to the start. You live consciously. The only way to slow down these revolutions round the sun is to be conscious in them. The more you're conscious every day, the more you're living consciously, that you're aware of what you're doing, you're aware of where your mind is, you're aware of what your body is doing, where you're going. In that consciousness, a minute can feel like 24 hours. You know, you're staring at nature's movie, you're up on top of that mountain looking at the sky. Yeah, like time can stop. You can make time, you know, you can't make it, but time will stop for you in those moments. The more conscious you are, the more time will slow down. And it's just about finding a way to do that as much as possible in this busy, busy, busy world of being an adult. So, yeah, 26 lessons in 26 years of life. Thank you for listening.